Many of you will know the story of Mrs. Cohen, who travels all the way from New York to India and goes to the ashram, and she has this absolute dying need to speak to the Guru. And she arrives at this ashram and she says, "I need to speak to the Guru." And one of the devotees of the Guru says, "Well, Mrs. Cohen, we have to wait at least 3 days, and then when the time is right for you to meet with the Guru, you can meet with him for 3 minutes, and you can only say 3 words." And so she prepares, she sits for 3 days. She's not a very experienced meditator. And eventually, after the 3 days is passed, the devotee comes and finally says, "Okay, Mrs. Cohen, the time has come. You can come and have a private audience with the Guru." And she goes in front of the audience with the Guru and she says, "Sheldon, come home!" I thought everyone would have heard that joke at some point in their life. It's good to laugh, isn't it? Gosh, we need to laugh. A version of that joke is actually told in an essay by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs on this week's Parsha. A different version, just in case you thought I wasn't going to. And of course, what's so interesting about it is it's funny partly because we know the story. We know how many people who are deep spiritual seekers have looked everywhere apart from Judaism to find their spirituality, right? It's just it's a known thing. It's part of Reb Zalman's legacy of just seeing that, especially in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, when Jews were just not finding spirituality and meaning and inner dimensions to Jewish life. And so they went elsewhere. And some of it's less true in England actually, but in the American community here, the leaders of the Buddhist community and the Hindu community, and then they're run by, I shouldn't say they're run by Jews, but a lot of the great spiritual leaders in different traditions. We run the world. Didn't you know that? Oh. So the inspiration for Rabbi Sachs telling that story is the verse that we're going to talk more about Zelo Ever Hayam. It's not across the sea. It's not across the sea. Lo b'shamayim hi, it's not in heaven, and it's not across the sea. There's a really beautiful midrash that I think has some comedy in it also, that says, because after that it says Beficha uvilvavacha lasoto. It's in your mouth and it's in your heart to do it. And so the midrash says, Amru lo Yisrael, the Israelites said to Moshe, Rabbeinu Moshe, our teacher Moses, Hare ata omer lanu, you've said to us, Lo b'shamayim hi v'lo me'ever layam hi, that it's not in the heavens and it's not across the sea. Hechan hi, so where is it? Moshe answers, B'makom karov hi, it's in a very close place. B'ficha uvevavacha lasoto, it's in your mouth and it's in your heart to do it. Eina rachoka michem chovahi lachem. It's not something that's far away, it's something that's very close. So, last night, as I alluded to already, Rav Jacob led a great discussion among the families on this concept. And seeing as this, we're entering into the first high holidays with Rav Jacob as our educator, I thought it would be interesting, and we've prepared this for hours and talked about it over thought it would just be interesting for Rav Jacob and I to have a little bit of a dialogue about what are the dimensions of this concept that Lo b'shamayim hi, lo ever hayaden hi, and it's this idea of it not being in heaven, not being in the sea, but something that's very close to us in our mouths and in our hearts. And last night, some of the families came up with some wonderful ideas about what that could mean. First of all, the question is, what is the it? What is the it, Rav Jacob? Do you want to come and join me up here?
Sure. Okay. So when Moses says this to the people, he says, Ki ha-mitzvah hazot this mitzvah, but he doesn't specify what he's talking about. So he might be talking about everything he's been talking about for the whole book of Deuteronomy, which is keep all of God's commandments, listen to God. In general, like doing this whole thing, it's not as hard as you think it is. It's really just in you. I don't know, he might be talking about something else. So traditionally, they sort of break down in three interpretations of what we think the it is. Either he's talking about all of Judaism, all of the Torah. Torah is not so hard. Or he's talking about learning Torah. Learning is not as hard as you think it is. It's already in you. Or the subject of the previous 10 verses, as Rabbi Mark alluded to earlier, the subject of the previous 10 verses and referred to more than any, this root is used in this parsha more than in any other parsha, is tshuva, is return. So perhaps it's the process of return that we're inclined to think is far away, that we're inclined to think you need to be a heaven-going person or a person who searches the whole world. But actually, you don't need to do that. It's already in you and in your heart and in your mouth. It's very close. Those are three answers.
So
do you have another question?
Which do you think is the right answer?
The right.
Or what is speaking to you most at this moment?
Well, I think I want to say both learning Torah and tshuva. I think tshuva is probably the pshat answer, although that's not the... What I mean by that is I think that's the contextual meaning of the verse in the narrative, although that's not the dominant traditional perspective. I think, one of the things that the families and a lot of the kids who gave answers last night focused on was we think that we have to go far to figure out what we're supposed to do, to figure out what our work is to do. And we have to, we should start closer, start even with ourselves, perhaps, with the work that we have to do. But as also the director of congregational learning, I feel like it's important to communicate to the community. Part of like my goal in this role, I think people assume that Torah comes from people with credentialed degrees and many years of study. And Torah, first of all, is already in you, all of you, in your heart and in your mouth. It doesn't mean you don't have to work hard to refine it or to teach it or to learn more or to challenge yourself. But I want to create a culture where we're learning peer-to-peer and people are taking, not necessarily responsibility, but they're taking opportunity for their own learning rather than waiting for someone to go and get it for them. So that's what I think.
It's beautiful, and I want to pick up on that in two different ways. One referring back to the Mrs. Cohen story, and one picking up on the fact that we're
Can I say?
No, stay there for a bit. We're not going to be long.
Okay.
And the other one is picking up on the fact that we heard its legacy. We're thinking about life and legacy this Shabbat as well. And I think that when we really think about life and legacy, we're thinking about the legacy, the Yerusha of Torah, like the fact that it is our inheritance. And I think the way it relates to the Mrs. Cohen piece for me is that many generations of Jews in contemporary times have just found this tradition very inaccessible, very far away. They can't find meaning in it. And tonight at the Slichot program, which I hope many of you will come to, we're talking about the whole idea of different spiritual practices that help us derive meaning and help us sort of get into this Jewish year. And I think that there's an abundance of richness, not just the study of Torah, but there are incredible rituals and traditions in Judaism. And it's I understand that other spiritual traditions have tremendous wisdom and depth and spirituality, and they're very, very attractive. But like what as a Jewish leader, and I'm not sure, but I imagine Rav Jacob feels the same, there's a sadness that comes to the fact that we and I really say we, I take collective responsibility, have not done a good job of really showing how beautiful and how accessible this tradition is. And if we're really thinking about life and legacy, if we're thinking about our new building, if we're thinking about what it can mean to have a vibrant Torah-based Jewish life in Boulder, Colorado, I think it's all about us taking responsibility for our piece of that, and I really value and honor and I'm so grateful for Rab Jacob's vision, because I think it's a very real one, that we can sort of create more of a culture where we find our own mouths and we find our own hearts in the tradition, in the Torah, in the ritual. It could be something as simple as saying, I'm going to commit to saying Shema when I wake up in the morning and before I go to sleep at night. That is a really powerful spiritual practice that is available to us, right? And there are so many others, and there's so much wisdom, and I hope with this new era in the life of Congregation B'nai Shalom, where we are both anticipating with excitement moving into a new building, and we have a new educational vision here, that we can really create that. And I think we're all totally supporting your vision. Just seeing it for just a few minutes last night, seeing these families just animated, talking about this question about what does Lo B'Shamayim mean. So what else would you say?
Oh, I should also quote my sources. It's the Ramban, Nachmanides, who says that it refers to tshuva, and the people I was quoting who gave some answers about starting with yourself, that was Naomi Sher and Noah Carmelli. So, thank you.
Yeah, that's good. So, anything else you want to add about?
I just want to.
Oh, yeah, please.
Some of us, when we grew up, we went to Hebrew school, and at that time, the conservative movement was all in the head. It was all intellectual, and they didn't even talk about God and where God came from or anything. So I want to wish you Yishar Kochachem, and this is wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to, for the sake of people who might be watching on live stream, just repeat. Francine shared that growing up in a conservative shul in Massachusetts, the conservative movement, and it wasn't just a conservative movement. I think post Second World War Judaism was very much about intellect. It wasn't just about intellectualism. It was also about you support the institutions. You put your money in the blue box, and there wasn't even an attempt to create a sense of inner meaning and connection and personal connection. So I do think that's a really good connection, because this whole idea of it being in your mouth and in your heart is about how we take ownership of Torah, how we make this tradition our own, how we really build on that, and I think it is a very powerful vision. Anything else?
Let's kick it to the congregation.
Yeah. So how do other people respond to this idea? These two concepts: Lo b'shamayim hi, it's not in heaven. Lo b'ever hayaden, hayam, it's not across the sea. Well, I'm thinking of ever hayaden because they're about to cross over into the Jordan under Joshua's leadership. But and that it's in our mouths and in our hearts. Do other people have other responses to it? Yes, Shoshana.
I'm really, you'll forgive me when I start crying.
We're used to it.
But the aspect about returning, this Thursday, Roger and I had a lovely conversation about repetition and beginning again as we begin in a year and we do things again. And, it's interesting hearing all of this, as somebody who I separated myself from the religion that I grew up with, which was Christianity, and came here. The reason why is that there were so many things that I could not go back, could not return. There is no, with families and loved ones, if there's an outbreak, you always come back. There's always a reason to come back. That's not the only thing that defines your relationship. That's what we were talking about. I don't know, I'm really resonating with the returning, because I come here every week and I return, I get to come back no matter how much I struggle with. And it's, I don't know, I'm rambling.
Beautiful. I'm just going to if I'm going to try and just briefly summarize what Shoshana said, which is really resonating. She's really resonating with the idea of returning, having not returned to the religion with which she was raised, where she felt there wasn't a space to return. Just this idea that of teshuvah, of returning, that there's always this possibility of returning. Thank you.
Yeah, and one other element that you were saying is that that's a quality of families, which is that the relationship with your family is not defined by the thing that happened. It's defined by the relationship, and the relationship is greater than whatever happened, so there's always an opportunity for return. Yeah.
Beautiful. Sarah, Jerry.
When the comment is, it's not heaven and it's not across the
See, yeah, Eva Hayam.
it's within you, in your mouth and in your heart. It just strikes me that we don't know, for the most part, I think, what we're capable of until we weather it, until we, Elul, you reflect, you return. But it's still all thought. It's as you live that you discover what you are capable of. And that really sounds so right to me. It's already here. We need to find it. But it's already here. And I love that.
Yeah.
But it also makes sense that if until you get to that point.
Do you want to just just summarize before you?
No, you
comment
summarize.
on it?
Summarize.
No, I don't know. Sarah Sturtz said that she really loves the idea, and especially in the month of Elul, which is a month where we are doing some inner reflection of this idea of just knowing that it's all there, and we don't have to look for it. It's all inside us, and we just find our ways to connect to what's already within us.
Right, and you said that as you live, you discover what you're capable of. But it also makes sense that before you discover that, it feels like it's up in the sky or across the sea. And then you shouldn't. I think you don't have to feel bad if you think that things are not available to you, because you'll discover them when you need to. Should we take one more?
Well, Jerry had his hand up, and Robin, and Rob's bracha, but all have their hands up.
So
Very
we have
good.
to-
This is,
one of the things, it kind of spins off what Sarah just said. In my mind, it's not necessarily what's the answer, it's the questioning. It's the constant questioning, and the questions change as our experiences change. And we seek answers, but in seeking answers, we seek questions. And it's that debating over the questions and looking is, to me, that's where the answers are. It's that
Beautiful.
conversations and debating and looking at Torah and saying, okay, well, what does this really mean? Well, for one person it means this, and for one person it means that, and then I interpret it my way. And that, to me, is the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Which, as Francine said, when I grew up, and I grew up in an Orthodox school, believe it or not, none of this existed.
So what Jerry Pinsker just shared was that it's much more about wrestling with the questions than it is about the answers, which is interesting because the word teshuvah that we think of as a return also in Hebrew can mean answer. And there's actually a misunderstanding because a Baal Teshuvah, who is someone who has become newly religious, it's about them having returned. But when people leave the Orthodox world, and there is a phrase which is Chozeh b'she'elah, which means they've returned to the question, which is based on a misunderstanding that the Baal Teshuvah is the one who has the answers. But really, the tradition is all about asking the questions and learning what other people have said and then finding your own voice within it, which is what I think Jerry said. Oh, there's so many hands now. Robin had a hand up. Bracha's, I don't know. What should we do? It's 10 to 12. If we have Kiddush later than 12 o'clock, it's not going to be my fault this morning. Because when I came back from 3 weeks away, the first thing that someone said to me is, we finished before 12 every single Shabbat that you were okay. So, what can I do? This isn't my fault. Robin.
Okay, I'll put it as succinctly as possible. When I see this in the text, I tend to think that the distinction between a physical and spiritual sense of being is a false binary that we took from the Greeks. But I find it one of the most amazing things, I think, that is just a realization, is to know that lives on Jupiter. So when I see the text and it says it's not in heaven or it's not across the sea, it's because it's a false understanding of the world to think that there's a distinction between those things anyway. It's really part of one whole, and you're part of it. So it's more about coming to a realization of that, not about trying to travel to find it.
So if I can try to restate what Robin said, it sounds like you're challenging the idea of far-awayness in general.
I think it's arbitrary and wrong.
That even something, even spirituality or connection being far away is because of a misunderstanding of our own nature, and what we are actually is made of the same stuff as everything else. So whatever we're looking for is already within us.
Sounds so Buddhist. Non-dualism. I don't know what to,
So very briefly.
Okay, go ahead.
Very briefly. When Sarah said about Elul pointing us towards our own capability, I was reminded of something I read in my teacher Rabbi Joel Hammer's Jewish Book of Days, where she points out that the linguistic or the homophonic connection between Elul, the name Elul, and your il, which means to be able. So there's a sense of like finding that capability within, grounded in the material plane of this season.
Beautiful.
And it's together,
Yeah.
not alone.
Right. So Rabbi Sarah Bracha said that there is a linguistic connection between Elul and personal capability, about the ability to do stuff. There's probably more deeper than that, but okay, really quick, Bonnie and Susan, and then we're going to do Musaf.
Also share Torah over Kiddush.
Yeah.
Rule against it.
Everybody in this room probably has more Jewish friends than that are outside of the community or outside of the synagogue than in. And for me, that seems to be an incredible opportunity, because when I meet people who aren't affiliated Jews, I always hear, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious, or I'm culturally Jewish. And I think we could do more to create a space where people don't think they can find their spirituality through religious practice or through the community. So.
Beautiful. Bonnie just said that there's so many people who define themselves as spiritual and not religious, and that there's something that we can do collectively to help people realize that actually being part of a community and being part of Jewish religious life has its own spirituality. Was that a good summary, more or less? Thank you. Susan, last words from Susan, and then we're going to...
I was going to say that you mentioned Lo Bashamayim and Lo Ever Hayam, but there's actually a second half of each verse,
Yes.
which is saying, which it says Lemor, as in basically what this means is you shouldn't be saying who is going to go to fill in the blank and get it for us and bring it to us.
Right.
And let us hear it, and that you can't really develop your own spirituality by expecting it to be spoon-fed.
Beautiful. So Susan Cohen said that we said Lo Bashamayim he is not in heaven and Lo Ever Hayam he, but we missed bits of the verses that say, in order that someone else is going to go to these faraway places and get it for you, it's just another emphatic way of saying it's work that we have to do ourselves. So I want to just wrap this up and say thank you. Wonderful comments and a wonderful discussion. And on this last Shabbat of 5784, where we're at the precipice of a new year in a world that feels very precarious and scary, that the work that we can do, and we're going to continue some of this discussion tonight about talking about spiritual practice, the work that we can do is our work, and the idea that we are heirs to this amazing tradition that has extraordinary depth and spirituality to it, right here in our own mouths and our own hearts. And I hope as we enter a new year that we can all find our own place, our own Torah, our own practices that can really enhance the lives that we're going to live in this coming year. Because the world needs us. The world needs us to show up, to be authentic, and to live spiritual lives with lots of inner work. Shabbat Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.